I'll wait for another 30 seconds maybe and then.
Sure.
Okay, maybe I'll kick it off and then we'll let people join. Hopefully, more people will join. Uh, Thanks everyone for joining today and welcome to the second governance working group meeting. We had the first one on the 31st of October at the end of the last month. Same day, Tuesday, same time. We didn't see a lot of participation the last time, so we tried to kind of communicate in a more effective way this time. So hopefully, more people are aware of this. Um, let me quickly take you through the agenda for today. Uh, so I'll start with giving everyone an overview of the governance working group as it is today. We'll move to kind of brief introductions from everyone who's joining. I'll give some highlights and updates from the previous meeting just to be sure that everyone is aware of what happened in the previous meeting. Although the minutes and recording are already published and are on the GitHub repo for everyone to see. Uh, and thereafter, we one of the topics that emerged from the last time was node selection criteria. We had a brief discussion on forum going on about it as well. So, and there were some ideas kind of shared during the last meeting. So we have put together a document that I would love to take you guys through, and then hopefully receive some feedback on that. Uh, we'll do a brief. We'll share sort of an update on how the status of different flips is looking like right now. Perhaps a macro view of how many flips are there and what stage they are in, etc. We'll then move to question and answers from everyone, and like it'll be open floor for anyone to kind of bring up a topic or a question, challenge, problem, solution, etc. And then we need to make some administrative decisions. So we'll discuss those and finally close with some closing remarks and next steps. Um, so without further delay, let me start giving you my story of why we kind of decided to start governance working group. So Flow has a bunch of kind of these technical working groups that are working already. The tokenomics working group that some of us kind of got together and started in the middle of the year around July. There's also the Cadence language design working group that meets very often, the smart contract standards working group. There's a developer experience and education working group kind of coming up, and there's like an FCL wallet working group, etc. So there are a bunch of working groups with specific structures, specific topics to be covered, specific type of people who contribute to those working groups. And similarly, we thought that we needed more community participation in the way we make decisions, the way we kind of drive governance on Flow. And that became sort of the primary motivation as to why we wanted to set up this working group specifically for governance. But at the same time, we also realized that perhaps we need a group that can think more deeply about how every other group may function, what its structure may look like, what its communication modalities may look like. So this working group can also help standardize, improve, enhance the way working groups generally work in the Flow community. Um, and finally, this is sort of course, another step towards making sure that we make very open, community-driven decisions. Anyone from the group can come up with ideas in this group. and we sort of have a deliberate discussion on that. And if like there is clear consensus on some of those ideas and solutions, we proceed, make those changes, etc., etc. And just to be clear, like, so of course, like, open to ideas, but like the kind of things that this group could discuss in future and today, uh, that we sort of initially thought were flow protocol, security, and performance parameters. So any discussion regarding those can be had here. Uh, some ideas and recommendations on perhaps how the Flow Foundation should allocate its treasury, perhaps like some ideas on what grants should be given out, etc. Uh, then helping bet in a better way how to kind of manage the community, grow the ecosystem, ideas around that. Maybe some more innovative ideas around how to sort of drive on-chain voting in future, etc. So it's pretty open in terms of the topics that can be covered. And it is another sort of important aspect is that this is open for any Flow community member to join and become a part of. We have kept this. You don't need to kind of become a member or join or subscribe or sign up or anything. We just share the meeting time and schedule and agenda with you, and then anyone is free to join and sort of just come up with ideas. We wanted to keep it very frictionless, seamless for everyone. So that's a little bit about the governance working group. uh, we will talk about some administrative decisions on how we communicate between each other and how often we meet, etc., towards the end of the meeting. But I would love to start with a quick round of introductions. Let's keep it to like less than 20-30 seconds, hopefully. And maybe I'll kick it off. My name is Kshitij, and I am a part of the Core Flow Foundation team. I'm a product manager, and I mainly focus on tokenomics and governance aspects on chain. And previously, I have experience in product management and economics for about 10 years. We'll perhaps like go down the list, and how about I say the next name and then that person kind of introduces themselves. Maybe I'll go with Vishal for now, and then Vishal, if we could just go down the list, that'd be great.
Sure. Hey folks, my name is Vishal Changrani. I'm a product manager at Flow. I mainly focus on node operations, tokenomics, governance. I've been with Flow since more than 3 years now. I'm based out of Vancouver, Canada. Nice to meet you all. And in case you're wondering, it's super, super foggy today in Vancouver. Uh, let's go with Austin next. I see him first in the list.
Thanks, Vishal. Yeah, good to see some familiar faces here. Nice to see some new ones. First time joining governance working group, but I'm extremely active in the Cadence design meeting one. So I'm sure some folks have already talked to me here and there. I'm the CTO of Floaty. We do lots of interesting, I would say, financialization of NFTs mainly, but also lots of community written and driven contracts like account linking, utils contracts, things like that.
Brian? You're on mute, Brian. Sorry.
Thank you. My name is Brian. You guys may know me around some of the Discords as Boise IT Guru. I am the founder of Forge for Flow that just recently won the last hackathon. We're focused on building decentralized developer tools for the Flow blockchain.
Amazing. Dennis?
Dennis here. I mainly do security work, consultancy, but other than that, I am trying to get involved with the flow. Mostly, I am touching almost every place. Emulator, I am maintaining now. That's all.
Cool. Dia?
Yeah, is it me?
It's Dia C. I don't know if that's you. Oh, D is.
Yeah, D.
Great.
Yeah, hello everyone. So, been following Flow for since the very early days. So just curious on what's happening and how things are going. Been running a validator in Flow as well, so really interesting to know what's happening behind the scenes.
Great. Dongo.
Okay. Hello. Hello. My name is Dongyo, and everyone just can call me DK. And I'm working at DSRB Labs and as validator and the developer engineer. So I'm just doing manage the node and then developing some tools whenever we need it. Well, there's a need arise, then I'll just building up something that helps run a validator and keep notify everyone. Yeah, that's the usual, but like make it more smoothly, scripting, everything. So that's just developing, maintaining the node, and some are more building wallet or those kind of stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm doing, and I've been managing the Flow node like since about like 2 years, I guess. So yeah, that's how I am, and then I'm located at the central timeline. So yeah, it's too cold here too, like Vancouver. Yeah, thank you. That's it.
Thanks. Flow Avatar, I don't know who we have from your team.
Hi, this is Luca from Flovatar. Hi. So yeah, I'm Luca. I'm based in Milan, Italy, and I built Flovatar 2 years ago almost. And yeah, loved developing on Flow ever since. I made the Flovatar recently. We launched the Dust token. Now we are working towards launching it on a centralized exchange and hopefully leading the way for many more tokens to follow. And yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. Jan.
Yeah, man. Hi, man. I'm an engineering manager on the Flow team here over 2 years now. And I work mainly with two teams. First is Cadence team, building the programming language in Flow, and the second team is the team that is building the execution node.
Great. Josh.
Hey, I'm Josh, smart contract developer on the Flow team. And yeah, mostly I kind of just move around different parts of the project depending on who needs smart contract developers, but currently focusing on some protocol stuff and like token standards. But good to see everyone here.
Great. Peter.
Yeah, hi. I'm Peter of Spark out of Singapore. We've been running a consensus validator since Genesis. Yeah. Good to be here.
Thanks. Tom.
Hello, I'm Tom, Flow team, 2 years, and working on the 4D team, primarily on verified interactions, aka Flicks these days. That's me.
Great. William.
Hi, everybody. So I've been a long time Flow investor and supporter since day one. I'm also the author of the business blockchain, and I generally invest or advise a variety of companies and projects in the space. I'm mostly an observer here, so I'm interested in being up to date, up to speed on Flow and its governance.
Great. Thanks. I think that's everyone. If I left out anyone, please feel free to jump in now. All right.
Awesome.
Can move on, Shubhaj.
Awesome.
Oh, Andrea. Hey, Andrea. Thanks for joining. We were just doing introduction.
Hey. Sorry for being late. I was in another call.
All good. You want to give like a 10-second introduction?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea. I'm in a different time zone, hence why it's dark. I'm based in Italy, and I am a developer advocate at Flow, so helping as much as possible the community build awesome stuff. And great to be here.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone, and welcome again to today's meeting. I'll move and give some highlights of the previous meeting. And I'll also start sharing some links in the group, which will eventually be available to you, since we'll be sharing all the minutes and all the links together. Uh, but this is where the minutes of the meeting of the last GWG meeting are published. This was, again, like I said, not attended by too many people. However, we did sort of go through a good set of agenda items. Uh, we first kind of discussed the frequency of the meeting, which I would love to kind of bring up as a topic again towards the end of this meeting. But that was one, and we decided we'll meet monthly. There were some questions around the relationship or independence between tokenomics working group and governance working group, and it was sort of clarified that both will work separately on separate topics. They might have some sort of dependencies in terms of TWG making some decisions which are maybe passed over to the governance working group for a final call, etc., or vice versa. We There was a question around who owns the service account, whether the GWG is will own the service account, but that's not the case. We have sort of specific community members owning keys to the service account right now. There's a good level of discussion on node selection, how to kind of move towards permissionlessness, and then how could it be initially, like what criteria could we sort of work out that would enable us to sort of attract the best people, best operators to the network. And we kind of went through the methodology and like how to kind of work on that criteria, which I will be presenting right after this. There was a topic on quant node sort of wanting to run a node, and we sort of discussed their qualifications, etc., and we decided that they should be allowed to run a node. Then there was a discussion on on-chain voting need, and whether we need to kind of immediately upgrade the cast, which is the voting tool that Flow uses. And the general consensus was that it may not be like sort of the urgent priority to do so. However, again, I would like to open up that discussion, since, like I said, like today there are more number of people in the room. And then we kind of concluded with what the next agenda should be, and out of which the most important one was kind of node selection, which I will be talking about today. If anyone is interested in the recording or the minutes, please go through this link, watch the video on YouTube. It's uploaded here. And with that, let me come to the next agenda item, which is discussion on the node selection criteria. Can you all still see my screen? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So first of all, we want to make sure that anyone is able to run a Flow node. Anyone is able to demonstrate interest in running a node and ultimately able to run it. So there is a limitation on how many kind of nodes can be added to the Flow network. So if there are kind of open slots available, we want to make sure that those open slots are allocated as freely, as democratically as possible. Going forward, we want the governance working group to allocate these open slots for consensus nodes, collection nodes, verification node, and execution nodes to the interested and experienced operators. For access nodes, however, the slots are always open and available, like anyone can permissionlessly sign up, start a node, etc. But for all other, like for these 4 types of nodes, we want the GWG to kind of take the final call on who should be added or not. But they, of course, the governance working group needs a criteria, needs a methodology to make that decision. So this is what this document is about. So there are kind of 3 parts to this. Vishal, go ahead.
Kshitij, if you don't mind, just more context to this thing. So today what happens is, today the network is permissionless, anyone can run a node. For an access node, you can just take the access node and join the network in the next epoch. However, for the other node types, execution, collection, consensus, verification, there is this extra step that needs to be taken, which is like we need to open up a slot. That node needs to be added. That node needs to also be added to this approved list. So there are these extra jumps. And traditionally, what has happened is any new operator or an existing node operator would like approach one of the Flow team member on Discord or on directly through email and ask us like, hey, I want to run a node. And then we have to kind of talk with them, figure out why they want to run a node, what's kind of like the tangible and intangible value that that node operator is bringing to the network. So it was a pretty, I would say, an ad hoc process and a pretty opaque process. And we want to like not have that process going forward. We want to like open that process up and let that decision of whether to include or not include that operator be a governance working group decision. From our part, I will make sure that the node operator kind of provides these details. And that's what this call is for today, to like figure out what details do we want from the node operators to fill in. And then I or someone within the Flow team will present these details to the governance working group, and then the governance working group can then take a call whether or not to admit that new node operator or not. So this criteria is basically what we should be asking from the node operator. Yeah. Go ahead, Shitesh.
Yeah, thanks, Vishal, for the context, and feel free to stop me, like if you want to add anything at any point. Uh, so in part one, go ahead yourself.
Go ahead, D.
Sorry, I was on mute. So the question regarding the pull request on GitHub, is it something contribution to the Flow repo, or is just a general pull request? Like the person has an active GitHub account.
Are you talking about what
Yeah,
pull request are you talking about?
in the optional and good to have criteria.
Oh, okay, yeah. Let's. You mind if we just go through them one by one, and then we can discuss that
Yeah.
as we get. Okay.
Yeah, I was meaning to kind of quickly take everyone through that, and then of course we can talk more about that. So in part one, we want to assess the experience in node operations that the operator has. Uh, so one of the questions that we will be asking them is, have they ever submitted a question on Discord, GitHub, or forum, essentially to understand if they are even a part of the community. Are they aware of things happening in the Flow ecosystem? And then after that, so one of these two questions ideally should be yes. Have they ever run a node on Flow previously? Any of the nodes, any nodes, any node type is good enough. And then of course details of those. If not, perhaps at least they should have run a node on other networks, because like some level of experience is desirable here. And then there's also like an optional one and a good to have. So is there any sort of PR on GitHub? And Vishal, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this is PR on the Flow repo, right?
Yeah, it can be any of the Flow repo, like Flowgo, which is the node software, Flow, which is like the client libraries, or any of the associated repo. We just want to like, this question is just to figure out how much engaged you are and how much sort of know-how, let's say, you have about the Flow ecosystem. So it can be on any of the Flow repos. It has a lot of repositories there.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
And so like looking at this part, like if someone has run a node on some other network but is kind of active in the community based on question submission, like, and discussion on Discord, GitHub, forum, they kind of pass this round or pass the part one, and then they can kind of move to part two. Just an example. Yeah. So then there is a part two, which is sort of a weighted assessment, like a bunch of things that sort of define the capability, expertise, and ability of the operator to run a node. Uh, there are sort of six uh, criteria or six types of questions. Hopefully, the candidate answers three yeses and provides the evidence for those. Uh, is number one is sort of, is it an established legal entity with 10 plus employees? Uh, if that is the case, like we perhaps like have more trust in that sort of entity. In terms of the staking capacity, uh, are they able to stake? So once again, every consensus collection, verification, and execution nodes have a staking minimum, on top of which delegators can delegate more funds to the node. But can the validator, can the operator uh, provide the staking minimum from their pocket, from their own resources, or are they only relying on external funding? And external funding here could be like sort of a lease from the foundation, or just sort of another type of funding that they are securing. So that kind of uh, defines the security that that node operator can bring to the network. If they are self-staking, there is a higher chance that they would not sort of misbehave on the network. Uh, then there's a question around assets under management. So, do they have like broader AUM? Perhaps like one of the thresholds which we sort of talked about was 5 times the minimum stake. So, if the minimum stake is 500,000 flow for consensus node, do they have like about 2.5 million flow AUM in total? Like maybe mm, if maybe in like sort of different tokens or currencies, but to contribute more to the ecosystem if required. Uh, are they able to co-market with the foundation? Are they able to sort of do any marketing initiatives, such as initiatives that which are kind of defined as qualifying here, could range from like, oh, we can sort of organize this hackathon that can reach 100,000 users or 2,000 developers, something like that. Can they sort of do anything like that, and are they interested? Then there is, do they have the support infrastructure to run a node? Do they have a dedicated on-call support, one person at least in-house who can uh, work on the network upgrade, who we can contact, who can contact us, etc. So a single point of contact. There's also a final question on, uh, is the operator based in a jurisdiction which is going to add to the overall network's decentralization geographically and politically. So if a new operator is coming from a region, from a country, from a place that currently we don't have on the Flow network map, I think that is exciting for us, and that'll sort of give more weight to this selection. And finally, there is sort of more subjective questions around the motivation. So, and some of these were recommended on the forum post, and thank you, Denise, for that, and a bunch of other people. So one was around your goals, like why do you want to run a node? Why a specific type of node if you have already made that selection? Is that just to kind of is it to bring some new product to chain? Is it to is it a business activity for you, or do you have any specific goals? So that'll be in less than 200 words. If they can describe this, that'll be great. Second is, describe your experience with Flow, and on some scale, like how well versed you are with Flow, and what are the strengths and weaknesses of Flow in your opinion. So basically that gives us some idea into whether the operator is aware of the Flow ecosystem, its strengths, etc. And then what are the costs and benefits of running a Flow node? So in the past, we've realized that some operators don't fully understand sort of the economics of Flow, and like whether like how different parameters, different sort of market factors are going to affect that profitability or kind of really improve that, etc. So maybe hopefully they will have a good understanding of that. That's the hope. and if they can sort of provide their understanding of that. And finally, what is their commitment to the flow network, to running a flow node? They could state this in the number of epochs or years, etc., and that gives us some indication of how long they are going to stick with the network. And these will be sort of uh, compiled by, say, Vishal and I, and we are going to sort of bring it to the governance working group every time there are sort of new applications, and then we'll have a quick round of discussion on whether we should allow or disallow a node operator to enter the network. Vishal.
Yeah, so thanks, Yudhit. So these are kind of the criteria that we came up last time when we met as a group, and it's mainly coming from our experience in how node operators operate and what we kind of expect and what will bring value to the network, and of course inputs from a lot of you folks. um, the next step would be like if we all agree on this criteria, or if you want to like update it finally when we have a final list, we will convert it into like this form which will be available on another repository, so that anyone who wants to run a node can just create an issue there, and he or she will be presented with this form with these criterias, and they have to like check boxes or fill in text and then submit it. And that issue once submitted, we can then kind of weigh in on that issue in the next meeting. So that's kind of the next steps after we kind of decide on the criteria.
Mhm.
Yeah, so open floor, I mean, this is what we came up with last time. All obviously open for suggestions, additions, updates.
Yeah, and you could also add like comments on Git, or just share them with the group here, and we can sort of brainstorm this further. If you think this is too elaborate, too short, maybe change some questions. Yeah.
There are different, I think there are different requirements, at least in the sense from the security perspective, right? We're talking about trusting relationship between node operator and, and the rest of the network, right? And I think there are slightly different levels. Like it is different if you run consensus node than if you run a verification node, right? Do we have any overview, or like how do we tie this into these criteria? I think it should influence, or it will change like the equation if I want to run consensus versus just verification or access, right? Do we have any kind of thoughts about that or summary of that?
So for all the nodes except access, we do expect a very kind of professional level of node operation with like very high SLAs in the order of like greater than 99%. The general standard that we have kind of using is like 1 hour of response time for critical fixes. So if whenever there's like a critical fix that's out, it's expected that the node operator upgrades in within 1 hour, and that kind of applies to all nodes except access node. Access node is a little different, where it's really on the node operator how they want to run it. But yeah, to answer to your question, Jan, it's pretty much high expectations for all the other nodes. We are not kind of splitting hairs between what's different between consensus and collection. Of course, the hardware requirements is different, the minimum stake is different.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering if I missed it, or if we are, yeah, no, that explains it. Thanks.
Any other comments? Go ahead, D.
One quick question, like related to, so we shall explain like how things were happening in the past before this process is being issued. So according to your experience, like what are your expectation in terms of people wanting to run a node for Flow, and why do you think they would be wanting to do that according to you?
So first of all, people would run node mainly because they want to like be part of the Flow ecosystem and like be part of the ecosystem, provide more security to the network. As being part of the ecosystem, they obviously they earn rewards as a node operator, which kind of helps them for the node upkeep. They also bring in like tangible and intangible values. So tangible is obviously support to the network, bringing more security. Let's say, for example, you're a consensus node, then you're contributing directly to the block production. If you're a verification, you're contributing to verifying the execution receipts. The intangible is there are like different node operators. They all kind of come in different shape and forms. Some are purely like node operators who provide node operations as a service, so they let other people who have tokens run a node. Some of them actually run a node because they really want to like they're vested in like the decentralization of the network, and they do want to participate in decision making. So that's their kind of motivation to run a node. So it's actually all across the spectrum, to be honest. And there are like individual node operators who are just getting started in the blockchain field and who are interested in running a node. So there's like different, I guess, different reasons for a lot of these node operators. Does that help, Lee?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, just because I had like other blockchains in mind, like they wanted to decentralize, and then they had created like gamified quests and games, so that they can select node operators among those who have earned maximum amount of points. And so like it depends like how fast Flow wants to decentralize, so whether to wait people to approach them and then to filter it, or whether like try something like create something where people could play around, and then it would help them build that experience of running a node and then go into it.
So we are decentralized in the sense like there's no one operator who kind of controls the network right now. For the other part, which you said about gamifying, I think we are not there yet. We are getting there. We have like a path to permissionless where we are like making all the other nodes as well completely permissionless. But I think that probably I would say halfway through that journey, and we still have some work to do at the node software level to kind of completely make it so that anyone can just spin a node and they don't have to like even go through a process like this. But we are not there yet, to be honest.
Got it. Thank you, Vishal.
Yeah. Hey, Luca, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to ask if you know if there's going to be a correlation between the amount of execution and verification nodes that will grow over time and the execution and sealing time of the transactions. So if we add the 100 more execution and the validation nodes today, what will be the impact on the speed of transaction execution and sealing? Is it significant or not so much?
Yeah.
Yeah, from my understanding, adding execution nodes should not really slow down execution at all. Sealing maybe marginally, but I don't think it'll be noticeable, even if we had if we had order of magnitude higher number of execution nodes. I don't also think that we're planning to add too many execution nodes. Like the flow architecture, the principles behind the flow architecture is that you don't need to have many execution nodes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no more questions on this topic, then I would suggest that you guys can, if you want any changes or additions, just make a PR for this particular file, and then just add your comments there, and maybe we'll give it a week, and then I'll kind of build that little form on a GitHub repo for any new node operator to submit, and then I'd start advertising that on all the different channels for anyone who wants to run a node with this criteria as within the form.
So just to put there any question or any comment, any extra thinking, you should be on the PR and then you
Yeah,
guys going to answer that.
yeah, I can create a PR for this file right away. Give me one second.
Okay. Yep.
Awesome. And Tom, I think you asked about like a published ROI. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. And maybe I'll quickly show this to everyone and encourage everyone to use this. So Flowdiver, of course, a community partner, has built some dashboards. One of those is a tokenomics dashboard, which sort of gives a real-time overview of the supply, the number of validators on the network, total stake, total delegated amounts, and the APY. These APYs are currently until probably until tomorrow slightly higher than they usually are, because we sort of shifted some stake between the foundation. But normally this is more around like 10.1 kind of 10.1%. So when you say ROI, like this APY only calculates annual rewards divided by the total stake, and does not take into account any COGS or like costs of operations. But according to our estimates, like if you sort of subtract the cost of operations, the APY then kind of ranges between 6 to 7%. So it kind of cuts down by about 3%. But feel free to use this and let us know, like, what do you think about this? And
I just wanted to throw that up there. There is confusion usually in the crypto space. It'd be APR and APY. My understanding is APY auto compounds opposed to APR. It's just the rate, non-compounding rate. And is that how APY is used in that dashboard? Do we know?
That's a good question. I think we have a very sort of simplified way of calculating it. It's probably non-compounded, and it probably should be APR. But essentially, like I that's why I always like to clarify, and I feel like there are two metrics. There is a gross yield or gross return, and then there is a net return. We This is a gross return, and this is based on calculating the rewards that anyone gets through the year, kind of summed up, divided by the total stake that they have in the network. So it's essentially like, what's my opportunity cost of putting that stake in the network, and we are kind of comparing that to the rewards that I obtain. But good call out. I'll sort of work through this again. Thanks, Tom.
I've shared the PR, by the way, for anyone to comment.
Awesome.
Oh, just a quick question for the flow driver. Yeah, flow diver. My bad. Flow diver on that, because on the flow validator channel, you guys just posting our viewer after every epoch. So whenever we have a chance, is that possible? We can just see the. It doesn't have to be real time right after the epoch. Can we just check our viewer on the flow diver, not to just using the flow API?
I will ask the Flowdiver team about that. Like,
Yeah,
it's
I'm just wondering, kind of a little bit of a request, because every time like you guys are posting on the announcement channel, but
yeah,
I don't think everyone's really. I mean, it might be helpful people just read more like directly, cause like
TK,
yeah.
you mind just asking the Find team for this feature? I think they'll be pretty receptive about it.
No, I mean, like, is that possible, or just because the Cassie, Cassie just says like, well, you guys encourage using the flow diver more. So if we just put this feature in it, then that's going to help them, well, make people using the flow diver anyway. So that's just one of the suggestions, not to just kind of request it. I can just calculate myself, but if we just put it here, then that's going to help people just using this more, like just a default. explore. Yep, that's it.
Thanks.
I think Flowdiver team has a link where they accept feature requests. I don't have it handy, but I can add it to the minutes later when we publish them. Awesome. Let me quickly, sorry, let me see what I'm sharing now. Okay. Okay. So, uh, uh, so I think every time that we meet, since flips is sort of, a very important uh, mechanism that we use for governance. And just to sort of let everyone know, flips is flow improvement proposals. Anyone can, it's very similar to ETH improvement proposals. Flips are used to sort of bring changes to uh, the protocol, the language, the governance, etc. on flow. And it is, and so we made some changes to the flips repo, and I can share the repo as well here in a minute. But essentially, anyone from the community can propose, can share a flip with the rest of us, and based on sort of a discussion, consensus, etc., that flip can go into fruition. It can be accepted, rejected, or implement, and if accepted, then implemented, and if implemented, then eventually kind of released and in version. So there are sort of different stages of a flip which are clear in this repo. Thanks, Vishal, in the chat. Feel free to go through that. But across besides these stages, we also have categories. So when you start a flip, you either start a flip for an application level change or cadence level change, governance change, protocol change, etc. So this table essentially is a sort of a cross fit between the stages and the categories. And just to let everyone digest this information in a better way, this is where we are right now. So we have 59 total flips that can be seen. Uh, and these are sort of the different stages. As you can see, like about 36% of the flips currently are implemented, the pie chart on the left. 29% are drafted, 17% have not just been implemented but released as well. So that's over 50% of all the flips that exist today. Some have been proposed, some have been accepted and rejected. And similarly, flips by category will give you sort of an overview of what kind of changes these flips are majorly recommending. Nearly 50% are cadence flips, 12% are governance, and hopefully we will have more governance flips in future. And then we have a few application, a few protocol ones. So, Jan, go ahead.
Those are all flips, not include like in any state, right?
Yes.
Okay, because there is definitely not so many open cadence flips.
Sorry, open cadence.
Yeah, the 46%. I know, I don't know of open cadence flips.
Yeah,
So
these are
that's
not.
why I'm asking.
So this is regardless of whether they are, in draft, proposed, accepted. This is just flips by category. If we, that's why I had this table earlier, but of course it's difficult to absorb so many numbers. But you can see that for cadence, 19 have been implemented, and only one is in the proposal stage, etc. And 6 are in the drafting stage. So that's for cadence out of the 27 which exist. So that's where we are, and like the idea is to just give the community an overview every time that we meet. Maybe we'll use the same slides, maybe we'll see some movements that have happened in the past month or few months, so that everyone is aware of what's happening at the flip level. And also I would strongly urge everyone to sort of go through the repo and sort of look through the like this kind of seamlessness that we have tried to achieve in terms of anyone starting a flip, proposing a flip, etc. Go ahead, D.
How does the voting process work? Is it something on chain? And so is it through a wallet? Is it from the node operator?
So currently we don't have a voting process. Flips are kind of proposed and started as a PR by a community member, and then everyone kind of comments on that flip. There is a detailed discussion. If required, that flip is kind of updated. So that's where we are with flips right now. We, however, also have a tool called Cast, where we where there is voting. It's semi on chain, and I can kind of describe it further. But I guess Vishal and Jan have raised their hands, so they probably have something more important to say.
I just wanted to say there is a voting process. It's part of like the forum or the Git, wherever the flip is posted. There is like a discussion that follows, and the voting process is fairly like informal. It's like a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So yeah, that's kind of how the consensus is derived through that forum.
To maybe just quick, yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say. Just quick addition on Cadence, for example, we use the Cadence working group, the language design meetings, to vote on the flips, to kind of discuss any feedback, and then to ask for anyone objecting to a flip, and then we only accept it when we have no objections after we've had the discussion, or when we have kind of overwhelming support for the flip. So there is a process, but it's not on chain for sure. It's mostly through the working groups right now.
That's correct.
Yeah, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, and then there was another link that Vishal had shared, which is so under on flow, we have flips. You can go to projects. There's a flips tracker, and then you can see all the flips. You can kind of go to the individual flip or just see the status, who's working on it, which category it is marked on. And you will kind of also see the movements of different flips to different stages here. So this is open for anyone to view. So feel free to have a look.
And the discussion, do they happen like on the working groups? Is it through the pull request, or is it on the forum, or it depends on the flip category?
It happens on the pull request, but some people in the past have also chosen forum to have that discussion. But based on the recent sort of README that we kind of updated, we urge everyone to have the discussion on the PR itself.
Got it. Thank you.
Right. Okay. If there are no other questions on flips, let's open up the floor for any topics. We can take about 10 to 15 minutes, somewhere between that. I'll put a hard stop, like if we are running over that, because I also want us to talk about some administrative decisions. Austin.
Thanks. Two things. One is it's difficult for some community members to make this time. 8 o'clock specifically isn't great for folks like Biarda over in Europe time zones. So just a good flag that he is very unlikely to be able to join any of these pretty much ever at this time. So it'd be good to kind of think about other ones. Even an hour later has worked for him for cadence meetings, but just a flag. Maybe not worth a discussion. The second one is about how other working groups should be tracked. The cadence one I'm in all the time. The tokenomics one I really don't see very many updates on, and I'm actually not even aware of a like smart contract standard one, despite being pretty active in standards discussions, I would say. So what is this working group supposed to do to ensure the other ones are actually doing the things that they're setting out to do? Because joining a working group shouldn't just be so you can have your name on something. Like, you should actually have to follow through and do what you say you're going to do. Tokenomics is probably a decent version of it. I've seen lots of discussions about tokens here and there, like whether we're raising prices for storage or transaction fees, but what is actually going to be delivered, and how does this group ensure that that one is doing their homework?
Uh, Maybe I'll start, and Vishal, feel free to add. So on number one, I think we are pretty open to changing the time of the meeting. If everyone is okay with sort of the meeting being 1 hour later, that works perfectly for us. If more folks can join, that's always the intention. Second, you absolutely are point on like on the topic of how do we ensure like how the like everyone is aware of what's happening with different working groups, since there are like a bunch of those right now. So we actually are working on a kind of standardizing the way all the working groups exist and kind of co-function, uh, what their structures look like, what their meeting cadences look like, what their communication methodologies look like in terms of like letting everyone know that the meeting is happening, etc. What their kind of GitHub repos look like, where all the minutes and the recordings are like centrally recorded and posted, etc. So we are working very closely with the moderators or like the DRIs of these working groups, so that all that information can be first of all, it can be standardized, and then all that information can be compiled and shared, published on flow.com. So we have a sort of a governance page where all the sort of working groups will be listed down with their specific links, etc., for like total transparency. So that's what we are working on, and I believe you will see that within the next month. We will have standardizations in place, and we'll have the information published on the website. Vishal.
Uh, I'm a bit hesitant with this working group kind of like overseeing the other working group. Like I always felt like this working group stands as a peer to the other working group. So I don't know if it'll be a good idea for this working group to kind of manage the other one. If there's nothing, if stuff is not progressing on the other working group, then that working group is where that should be brought up. Otherwise, I feel like I don't want this to be like an overseer of all the other working groups. But that's just my take of it.
I guess one of the intros to this meeting, or like one of the things I feel like was mentioned, was that that was one of this working group's like objectives, is to make sure that we understand what all is being like done, what the other working groups are supposed to be doing. Like accountability, or like being a manager or whatever, that's not probably the right word for it. But if a working group isn't doing its job correctly, then how are they even going to assess themselves as like, what do we need to change, or what's going to happen? They really, at the end of the day, the question is, how do you root out dysfunction, and what is the plan to like actually recognize and mediate that? Because the existence of a group doesn't really mean anything. Results are what matter, and I don't know, having meetings doesn't really get us anywhere unless there's action afterwards.
I think my thought, again, a thought is that this group should help define how the working groups are governed, even if we are not, managing all of them, or like we are not at, like we don't need to sit at top of all the working groups, but we just kind of define the rules, define how they are governed, how they are run, how they are operated, whether they are open, closed door meetings, whether they are when can should the meeting happen, etc., etc. Like just kind of place the rules with and keep them sort of fluid, such that each working group can just use those guidelines or use that blueprint and set their own structures. So that's what I have in mind. Maybe we need to pen this down to like have full clarity on what this group is supposed to do regarding other groups. But I think governance of all the working groups is what the governance working group should help define.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think really I guess to because I don't want to take up more time than is necessary. That's also not great. Is mostly just of the working groups that are active. Probably what's good to track are like the actual things that come out of their meetings, which you've already said is kind of going to be published. But then what's been talked about is one thing. Who has been assigned to do what? When should those be done? Like actual tickets that need to be tracked, and like whether or not they're meeting those milestones. And maybe that's just something that they need to publish, and every once in a while there should be like a more macro level, like how is each group doing, and that's not really something that's done here. But yeah, I would agree it's would make sense for this group to define the governance of the other ones, and those kinds of, what's the right word for it, like remediation steps or check-ins or whatever you want to call it, probably need to be part of that as well.
Yeah, and I feel like as soon as we are kind of done with that structure setting, we could perhaps like add another line item in this recurring meeting where we simply like take 5 minutes to update everyone on what's happening with other working groups, what milestones are being met, what are the successes, failures, challenges, etc. Similar to like the presentation on the flips tracker that we did today. But great idea. Thanks, Austin. And I'll let everyone kind of come up with topics, but maybe there are a couple of topics which I want to raise, and one of them is meeting frequency. So the last time that we met, we kind of decided that there is a need to meet every month, and we decided that we'll meet on Tuesday of last Tuesday of every month at this time. So would love to understand a if meeting time works for you, or let's say if you're okay with moving the meeting time by 1 hour, uh, give us a thumbs up, because that was one of the things that was proposed by this group. Yeah, definitely. We can also ask in Discord and perhaps like do a little survey there. Awesome. We see a lot of thumbs ups. So maybe the next meeting we will propose to hold at 12. What's the time? 9 a.m. Pacific. Sorry, I'm on the east coast. 9 a.m. Pacific might work for everyone. The another question is: do we want the frequency to be monthly? Do we want it to be quarterly? Do we want it to be like kind of every 2 months? Would love sort of the thoughts there. Austin, and then Chirag, Vishal.
Yeah, so I view a lot of this kind of stuff the same way I view like sprint work in general, as much as many of us probably hate that word. Until you really have your process down, you can't delay how often you meet. Like if you really know what you're doing and you have your processes down and it's async really, really smoothly, then you could do once a quarter, right? But until that's done, and until we know exactly what this is and how we all rely on whoever's doing what they're doing, I think at a minimum it has to be monthly.
I was actually of the opinion of having it quarterly and then having an ad hoc meetings whenever we want, and then whenever there's something pressing, we could have one whenever we want, like with a lead time of course a day or a week. But then having it quarterly is what my opinion was, just because it takes away time collectively, right, from everyone. So just in the interest of time, I was thinking meeting quarterly would be the right cadence for this meeting, with the exception of having ad hocs whenever we want.
I mean, I'm kind of in agreement that without more defined processes, without knowing exactly how everything's being handled, there's just not enough information to say when those ad hocs would necessarily be needed and when to call for them.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Like, I think the goal would be to like spread them out over time, but maybe a little too early to do that, because we just really don't know what, like, we should ask ourselves what questions need to be answered such that you can move it to being quarterly, and then go from there and say, okay, do we know, like, have we done these things and are we comfortable with that? I think it's a good goal, and ad hoc should also still be possible even if it's monthly. What I would want to avoid is important things are being discussed and someone can't make it because they're on vacation, for instance. So like a day isn't really enough time, or to Brian's point, like how do I know that this is important enough for an ad hoc meeting, and how do you like round the troops up for that to get everyone to attend? Like, those are really big challenges and probably examples of questions that should be answered before we expand the kind of length between times.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Then let's do monthly going forward, and then see if we can expand it out. If everyone's in agreement with that. Okay.
Sounds good. So in terms of the next meeting, since December, like a lot of people are going to be out, like, is everyone okay with skipping the December meeting but having it in January? And then, of course, we continue on to the monthly schedule. Like, monthly is what we stick with, but skipping the December one. Yeah, awesome. Cool. I'll post the sort of the meeting schedule and details again when I publish the minutes. The next one that I wanted to bring up here is I want everyone to subscribe to this post, this topic on forum, because this is where we will be posting about sort of the meeting schedules besides Discord. This is where we'll be kind of publishing all the information about the meetings that have happened, the decisions taken, the links, etc. I'll also reshare it on Discord, but ideally, we want to have all the working groups start their sort of threads here, such that anyone who's subscribed to this topic is, made aware of everything which is happening across all the working groups. So please subscribe. And one question that I had was for this group, like, do we need a separate Discord channel for governance working group, or do you think it's okay to just sort of continue using the same channels? And then, because mainly the information that currently we are sharing is for the meeting schedules, but later it might become some sort of discussions on different governance topics, and at that point we might need a channel. Josh?
Maybe it would be good to like combine the tokenomics working group and the government's working group into one channel on Discord, because I feel like for both, like, there probably won't be a ton of like activity on a regular basis. So we can just say, like, instead of just calling it the tokenomics working group, we can just call it like governance and tokenomics working group. Just definitely want to be cognizant of not creating too many channels in Discord. And I feel like they kind of share similar topics. So
Okay. I think we can do it. Like, it's just that the tokenomics working group is still sort of like a smaller group of people. It's, again, like, when we work through that formalization and that structure, maybe we will know whether we are kind of, also opening up that to the entire community, or we'll continue to have a closed door meeting there. But if that's not the case, then you're right. Like, maybe they'll have similar topics, and there is no absolute need to start a new channel. But Austin?
I would just say keep it simple. If it's something that, like, combining it into something else might mean we have to consider XYZ, then just make a new group for now, and like, we don't have to stress too much about it. Like, I mute any channels that I don't follow. It's pretty easy to do that. I don't see that as like a huge issue.
Brian?
Yeah, I was actually just going to say, I'm actually of the opposite opinion, that I like more channels in a Discord so that I can be, I can mute the channels that I don't want to listen to and I'm not paying attention, but I'm not losing the conversations I do care about in the noise of everything else going on in the same channel.
So start a new channel. Is that okay? Just give a thumbs up if you're pro that. Okay, we'll set up a new channel then.
You okay with that, Josh?
Yeah, is that okay, Josh?
I mean, I still disagree, but clearly more people want a new channel, so can't really argue with that.
Okay, let's go with that for now, separate channel, and then see where we get to.
Okay. Thanks. And we have a couple of minutes. If anyone has any pressing question, feel free to raise that now. Otherwise, I'll just as a next step, I will be publishing this the minutes of the meeting, publishing the recording of the meeting, and the schedule for the next meeting. And when we start the channel, like which is one of the next step, we are going to sort of start discussion on some of the things that we talked about today. But today it seems like most of the discussion was around like setting the structure right, and like sort of making sure that governance working group knows what it's doing. Austin?
Yeah, I think just pulling from my time joining the Cadence meetings, I think for probably over a year now, which is kind of nuts. I would say that it's probably useful for people to be able to put in a document, here's things that I'd like to make time to discuss, so you have a more full agenda coming into a meeting like this. So good example is that what Bastion has is a Google Doc that anyone who has a flip they want to discuss or some other topic, we put it in, we review the whole agenda and say, okay, we'll try to make time to get to all of it, but these are the most important ones. That way you're not waiting kind of after you've gone over what we're aware of as the agenda, and then asking other people to ask questions. You can kind of get that information ahead of time.
Yep. So for this one, I had shared the agenda, and I was hoping like we would receive some feedback on forum and on GitHub. We did not, but yeah, maybe the easier one is to start a Google Doc and keep it open for anyone to.
And maybe that's just my failing, not knowing that. Probably the other part is just learning where this group will track its work versus where other ones do, and I think that just takes some time. So if there's already a mechanism to do that, that's just my fault, and we'll learn what we should do over the coming months as we join these more often.
Yes. All right, we'll keep that in mind. Thanks, Austin. And with that, I think we can close the meeting. Thanks everyone for joining. Vishal, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the same thing.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining. And also we are kind of new to this process, so we are learning as we go along. So the feedback is always welcome. Thanks for all the feedback.
Yes. Thank you everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.